Well, such is your life, right? There's always
Yes.
always on the run, right? Well, this movie is really fantastic, and it really, I think, is it's going to be fascinating to a lot of people. But one thing you said during the Q&A, or actually and through the movie, that I think is going to kind of alarm people is, having a Prius and changing your light bulbs just isn't enough,
Yeah.
And so what is it that people can they write to their Congress people? Can they,
Yes.
what is it that
It'd be delightful if the answer was a simple, change your light bulbs or change to Prius, and by all means do that.
Yeah.
But I think we also have to be honest and say this is not what's going to change the world energy supply. First of all, most of the emissions are going to come from China and India, and they, quite frankly, have other and more important issues to tackle right now. But secondly, most of what we do not come from our cars or from our light bulbs, but it comes from a lot of other, mainly industrial processes, heating, cooling, those kinds of issues, and that's much more about getting cheap energy technologies. Now, that's not something you or I can make happen, but what we can do is to make sure that we elect politicians who will be spending money on the research and development into green energy, and also not elect politicians who just say the nice things but don't actually do anything.
Yeah, and are there people that you think are doing it right in office, or anybody that you think we should pay particular attention to that has the heart for this kind of thing?
Well, first of all, I think it would be very, very bad of me to go in and talk to the U.S. about U.S. politics. We'd hate that endeavor if somebody come and tell me you should be voting for this person. But I think much more importantly, no, we don't have any politicians who actually step up and say, I think we should deal with climate change in a different way. And there's a very simple reason why. Because right now, you get lots of applause for saying, I'm going to solve this in 20 or 50 years when I'm no longer in office. And then leave it at that. And as long as we award our politicians to do that, of course they're not going to change their tune. Secondly, as long as we let them do this, we are also basically telling them, every time you come out and say something different, say something that's not the Al Gore message, we don't like you, we don't trust you. And we need to open up that conversation. Right now, the political conversation, especially in the U.S., is either it's not happening at all or it's the end of the world. And I think, and what I hope this film does, is it gives us an opportunity to stake out a third path, a middle road, a sensible, smart position where you can say global warming is real, it's man-made, it is an important problem. It's not the end of the world, and let's start tackling it smartly.
And what's it like to have such detractors like you have? Like, I can't imagine getting a pie or whatever that was at the border. I mean, I guess knowing what you're doing is pushing so many buttons. Like what kind of feeling is that for you?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, I've never taken it as a personal issue. I mean, it seems to me that some people get very upset about hearing that maybe their favorite solution isn't working, but I think somebody needs to say it. There's a famous saying from Harvard Law School, if you have a good case, pound the case, but if you have a bad case, pound the table. And I always found that, pounding the table, and certainly pounding me, is in some way an admission of having a bad case. So to me, this is much more about advancing the conversation and getting us to realize our current solutions aren't working. We've been trying for 18 years. Maybe it's about time we start thinking, are there other and smarter ways to do this?
And is that why you think the film is the best way to get this out there? Because I mean, you've written the book, you've been on numerous TV appearances. Did you feel like film was the next natural step to get the message out there?
I think there's a very crucial point in this whole discussion, which is about whether it's acceptable or not. And everyone has this tendency to believe that I'm this really, really bad guy. And whenever I go out and give talks, invariably somebody comes up afterwards and says, I thought I was going to hate you. But, this actually makes good sense. And so, in some way, the world is, or my life is too short to be able to get out and talk to everyone and actually convince them, no, I'm not actually a bad guy, I'm actually making pretty good arguments. And so I hope the film can actually do that for us. It can start that conversation of realizing, maybe we want to listen to this guy, maybe he's not such a bad guy, maybe he has some good points. And if that opens up the debate, then I'm happy. So yes, this is much more about allowing that third smart middle point to be heard.
Exactly. And also, just from a viewer's point of view, what is it, just in maybe a line or two, that you want them to get out of this? Because I mean, there's so many points here, but how do you even summarize this?
Well, I'm not sure I'm not going to summarize it in 2 points. I'm going to summarize it very quickly. Global warming is real, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
We need to tackle it, and we don't do that right now.
Yeah.
And the main reason is because we've been focusing on policies that are both politically impossible, namely promising grand carbon cuts, and hugely inefficient. Namely, even if we did it, they would cost a lot and do very little good in 100 years.
Yeah.
We asked some of the world's smartest climate economists, and they told us the smartest long-term way is to dramatically invest more in research and development into green energy. The simple point is, as long as solar panels cost a fortune, a few rich, well-meaning Westerners will put them up and feel great about themselves.
Yeah.
But it's not going to solve global warming.
Yeah.
If we make solar panels cheap enough that they're cheaper than fossil fuels, everyone will buy them. We have fixed climate change.
Yeah.
So it's really about saying, yes, it is a problem, but fix it smartly, please.
Yeah. And you say that money is probably the biggest issue that getting, I guess, the government or whoever it is to put their money into this. So how can that change? I mean, do the world's billionaires need to come together for this? Like, how do you see this happening?
Well, fundamentally, I think it's much more about getting governments to pony up some of the money that they're promising, but spending it much, much smarter. And so essentially, we are all getting together in all these great international jamborees where we were promising to do all kinds of stuff and yet not doing it. The promises that we make are on the orders of hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
I just want to have the world promise much less, about $100 billion, but actually spend it.
Yeah.
And the point is, it'd be cheaper, it'd be much more effective, and it would have a much greater chance to actually fix global warming. So it's a win-win-win situation. Yes, are all the money going to show up? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it's a much easier sell because we were saying it's cheaper, more effective, and actually will fix climate change.
Yeah. So what's next for you after this? I mean, obviously this is the next. We've got the book, the movie. Like, where do you go from here to keep getting the message out? Or are you hoping that the DVD distribution will be that like an Inconvenient Truth to where it will circulate even more so?
I definitely think this has the potential of breaking through. I think in many ways the Copenhagen summit last year, where negotiations essentially broke down and everybody said this is our last chance to save the planet, and we didn't, made a lot of people aware, all right, the current approach just isn't working.
Yeah.
And so there's a big demand for a different approach. And I think that's what this film offers up. So I think it has the opportunity to break through if we start getting this conversation about a smart middle, that we can have a third position between it's not happening at all, it's the end of mankind. I think we have won. I think then the conversation will go much by itself, and to a certain extent I don't even have to be involved anymore, because then you start having the kind of conversations you always have, namely, so should we do this or that? And there's going to be a lot of smart positions, and quite possibly smarter than what we've come up with. But the fundamental point is to open up the conversation, and I think the film can do that. That's my goal. Then let's see what we do if that happens, or indeed if it doesn't. Yeah,
well, that's what I like that you said. You said I'm an academic. You admit that you don't have all of the answers, right?
No, listen, I'm not, well, I think it's more a question of saying I am not going to be a politician and going out there and battling and saying we need to do this. I am trying to say let's get the information on the table and realize we're not dealing with a problem. It is a problem, but there are smart solutions. That seems to be a pretty important information to get out there, and we haven't heard it so far.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well, I know you got to run in. I really